Hello, my name is Virinder Kalra. I'm a professor of sociology at the University of Warwick, and I want to talk to you today about a project that I'm just starting and which chimes very well with the themes that we'll be covering throughout the whole day in terms of our own voices. And the title actually on the program here is Our Own Stories in Our Own Languages. Um, and in particular today, I'm going to talk about migrant South Asian women's vernacular writing in Britain. I know that's a bit of a mouthful, but I'll explain what I mean by that as I go on. So in the last 30 years or so, we've become quite used to British Asian writing in English. I think very well known names like Hanif Qureshi, Monica Ali, Miracial. These books have entered into the English language canon and give experiences of migrants. They give experiences of what it's like to grow up in Britain as British Asian. There's a wonderful book that just came out very recently by Gurnek Johal, We Move, which is a collection of short stories. And for me, this collection is really important because the style in which this very young man is writing and the form of short story kind of evokes the writing that I'm interested in, which is diasporic vernacular fiction writing. And what do I mean by vernacular fiction writing? Well, I mean writing that's in South Asian languages. So in writings in Urdu, Punjabi, Bangla, and Gujarati. And there's a lot of this writing actually, though it's not being given much exposure, it's not really talked about. Very few people actually know that there were writers amongst the migrants that came to Britain in the 1950s and 1960s. But this is a very flourishing world if you know it or if you have access to it. And here I've just got a few examples. Authors like Basil Kasmi, who is a poet and has published two or three books, and he's based in Manchester. The themes of a lot of this work are migration, the ways in which people settled in Britain, and then the kind of troubles they faced, the kinds of ways in which they felt alienated, they missed their homes. But ultimately, the stories that I've read up to now tell us about the ways in which there's a final settlement that people have landed and have arrived. And so the project that I'm involved in is looking at writing in Urdu, Punjabi, Bangla, and Gujarati. My own personal journey here is that my father was one of these short story writers, and so I never could read his short stories when I was younger. But the fact that these books used to lie around the house got me very curious. And as I got older, I learnt Punjabi myself, and then went on to read his short stories and get this insight. And in a lot of ways, that insight has informed my own professional work as a sociologist. So the aim of this project is to look at the history of production and circulation of these works. And there are novels, there are short stories, there are poems, there is mostly poetry, but my focus will be on short stories just because those are the ones that I think really evoke and give a nice insight into the issue of migration, or a documentation, if you like, of migrant life. I'm also really interested in the history of production and circulation of these works. In the 1980s, up to the 1990s, really, something which has been called the multicultural state or multiculturalism was really important in Britain. And for writers, this became a way in which they could express themselves, ways in which they could publish their works. So libraries, education services, associations, the Arts Council was all involved in the production and circulations of these works alongside community publications. So magazines, newspapers would carry a lot of this poetry, would carry a lot of these short stories. So there's multiple levels in which these things circulate, and there's multiple ways in which they overlap with the multicultural state. And so the project will create a database of writers and their works, specifically looking at those writings that document migrant life. And then we'll take a selection of those short stories and translate them into English to make them available to a wider public. I'm looking for people who may have a book or two by their grandparents or something by their parents that is just tucked away on a shelf and that they don't really know what they are, to get in touch with me, to let me engage with whatever writings they may have. I mean, the way in which this whole project, that I got involved in this project, is because Hardish, one of the organizers who you'll have heard in the sessions, his mother was a writer. And so for me, the project is also just about stimulating my generation and the generations to come about the existence of this writing and about the importance of it. And so the following two videos that I'll be presenting to you will look at two authors, and I'm looking specifically at two women authors. The majority of the authors writing in vernacular languages were men, but there were a number of women who wrote also. And so the authors that I'm going to talk about today are Kailash, Puri and Jasvir Kang, who are both Punjabi writers, because Punjabi is the language that I'm most familiar with and most easily able to access. And so the following videos, the next two videos, I'll be telling you a bit about their lives, and then I'll read a bit from their works and give you a summary of the story that I'll be looking at. Thanks.